Hey everyone, welcome to episode 79 of the Sarah's podcast. But yeah, it's December and I feel pretty rough today. I feel a bit croaky, tired. It must be all this hard work. So, as you know, this is our first episode of December. It's so weird. This year has just gone really fast. Who else is struggling to process that 2020 has just flown by? The great news is, with the vaccine, the country can start moving forward again. Not everyone will agree with it, but for the most part, if enough people who are vulnerable, who have preconditions, have taken it, then that's a positive thing in my view. And I genuinely, believe that hospitality, fish and chips, you name it. I think the grey pound is so important to it. I think that if the older people aren't leaving the house because of COVID-19, then that is massively impacting restaurants, fish and chip shops, hotels. I think that with their sort of their spend, it's just missed, and I think the industry won't be the same until they get the confidence to get back out again. So I, like many, just look forward to the day that COVID-19 is a distant memory. At the point of recording this episode, we are about eight or 9 days into December. I'm interested to know how trade is. Is it like a normal December? One thought recently is, January and February are usually pretty dire anyway. So what's it going to be like in 2021? It just makes you wonder, could it be normal? Could it be worse? Could it be better? Interested to know. So keep us informed if it's different to usual. If you know me, you'll know that I'm a real big fan of personal responsibility and personal effort. I do greatly appreciate the help that this industry gets from UK Hospitality, from the National Federation of Fish Fries, and the Nationwide Caterers Association. But I truly believe that if you want to enact change, you have to truly understand every aspect of the situation. So, why am I saying all this? At the moment, the UK government has been gracious enough to reduce VAT from 5% to 20% for the hospitality industry. And this is helping you all save a little money for a rainy day, but have money for other things, or for many, it's just a lifeline. We've always known that 20% is incredibly high, and although it is a consumer tax, it's hard to justify to customers who have no idea what it is. So, we believe now is the time to start pressing your local MPs about VAT. Start educating them on the issue and how it's a problem. I truly believe your local MP doesn't know the impact that VAT has on your business. So if they knew and you informed them from the bottom up, it could help the likes of UK Hospitality, National Federation of Fish Fries, the Nationwide Caterers Association lobby them from the top down. I just feel like this is a better way to do it. Even better if you can arrange a meeting with you and similar businesses, and all of you sit in front of that local MP as a collective voice to explain to them the difficulties. You don't have to, worry about competition. Everyone has to collect this 20% and pass it on. So you might as well all talk about it together. In my view, we all need to do our bit. There's strength in numbers, and this way you can help the associations. We've also tried to help by putting together a template letter for you to send to your MP. Write it to them, invite them over for something to eat or a drink at your establishment. Explain to them and inform them of the situation. But more importantly, use your charm. Don't argue with them if they don't agree. Just keep informing them of the facts. If you're struggling for talking points, then read our articles on VAT or talk to your chosen trade body. You can find the letter template in our online store. It's free. Don't worry about it. Just go through the order process and it doesn't take any money, and you can download it from our website or it gets sent to your email. On to our online store update. If you place an order from now till the 17th of December, we will choose 3 customers who have made a purchase or a donation to Heartlink charity. It's not much to do really, and you get to win, or a chance to win, an M&S hamper. We mostly use UPS for all our individual items that are ordered on the website. So they have reported a massive increase in volume due to COVID-19 and Christmas. So don't leave it too late to make your order. If there's anything you need, plan a few days ahead. What we don't want is you ordering it when you need it tomorrow and it not coming till the day after. Now, over Christmas and New Year, if your wholesaler is stuck for stock, then let us know straight away. Go to our website and order it and we'll get it sent out. Now, on to this episode. It was really cool talking to Steve Drake, the owner of Sorrel Restaurant in Dorking. I reckon we could have spoke for ages, if I'm honest. He's just a really cool, chilled out guy and a really knowledgeable. And, it's amazing because I went into this thinking he was going to be really just really hyper motivated and really firm, but he was just the complete opposite. Well, he was to me anyway. And he's got a huge list of accolades: 1 Michelin star, 4 AA rosettes, Surrey Life Restaurant of the Year, Good Food Guide 2020, runner-up in GQ's Restaurant of the Year. So you can just see, super motivated, does loads of marathons, triathlons, you name it. Makes me feel a bit lazy, to be honest. So I'd love to have him again in the future. He was just really cool. Maybe we can get him on with someone else. I genuinely can't wait to go back there and eat. I hope you all enjoy this episode with Steve Drake. Steve, welcome to the Sarah's podcast.
Hi there, how you doing?
Not too bad. We've just had a whole 3 conversations before we even started this.
And I thought you'd already pressed play. I'm exhausted already.
Yeah, I always find that it's really hard when I find people that can talk just as much as me.
No, I don't think I can.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're like gold standard. You're like really good.
Yeah, my mouth doesn't stop, basically. I always worry because if there was cannibals, they'd want my cheeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like pig's cheeks are really tasty.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting you're
Stop
a pig.
looking at me like that.
But I'm not suggesting you're a pig at all. But we use them a lot in the restaurant.
Yeah.
And they're so lovely and succulent, so I can see why the cannibals would like
I've been called worse, Steve. Don't worry.
Oh, it's a good start, isn't it?
It's great. No, it's great. But no, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. And, I've been doing a bit of research. I've been chatting to you today. And
it's all lies. Well, actually, no, it's not.
It's a lovely restaurant, though. It's nicer than what I expected, to be fair. And like the area, I was expecting it when you said by email it was on a main road or whatever it was, or by text. And I thought to myself, oh, how nice could it be on a main road? But it's actually slightly set back, the car park set back.
Yeah, we're very lucky. I think that one of the nicest things about being in Dorking is the actual drive-in.
Yeah.
If you drive in, you're driving through the Surrey Hills, you've got Box Hill, you've got the A25 where you just it's just the most idyllic drive from Guildford or Newlands Corner. So then sort of mentally, I think you feel you're in a really lovely sort of spot. So we're in the town centre, but we're just slightly removed from the town centre ever so slightly. But we're very lucky. We've got a really nice spot, Grade 2 listed, over a couple of floors.
So that means the local councillor, not local councillor, but the person that deals with that, the planning officer, is like your business partner. They come in, tell you what you can and can't do.
Oh, honestly, I kind of learned early on that I kind of had to kind of play the game a bit with them.
Yeah.
So everything I wanted to do, I would send them a long email and say, I would like to take this. I had a like a big, what do you call it? There was a big swinging sign.
Okay.
Outside here, like you have in a pub.
Like a pub big sign. Was it on the wall?
Yeah, like a big post.
Okay.
And it was sort of leaning over, and I thought, well, I don't really want it to look too much like a pub, to be honest, because
it's a restaurant.
And I said to him, Peter, I said, I want to take this thing down because I was told. We're a conservation area. We're Grade 2 listed. Basically, you can't even clean a door handle without getting permission for it. So I said to him, a very long email, and then I think I kind of played to their ego a bit. They're quite precious conservation officers.
Clipboard people.
Oh no, they're very, very precious. No, I think they're artists. I think they see their job as protecting the buildings of this world. And so I just sent them a very long email, and I said, please come over and have a look. It's like really. And he just sent an email back saying a long email, and then said, but basically just said, yeah, just take
do
it
what you
down.
want.
Yeah, basically. And I kind of learned that if you actually don't try and get away with anything, otherwise it ends up stinging you in the arse at some point. Yeah. I thought, well, you just tell them what you're going to do, what you want to do. If they say no, say, how can we get around it? If you can't, you can't. But,
Yeah, that's good. At least you're not just winging it straight from the hip.
I don't like winging things.
Yeah, my dad's a bit of a winger. He built a fish and chip shop in 2006. Still ain't got planning permission. Just argues
Really?
with them. Yeah, just argues with them. Like, just says, well,
Yeah.
you know, you got it wrong. And they'll be like, oh, come on, Pete, we've got to sort this.
I think you can take gambles on these things sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's
You can be a bit of a rogue, yes, sometimes.
I think you can, yeah. If it's a sort of sensible, pragmatic kind of, come on, look, this is a sensible thing to do. But I always try and take a sort of a relatively. It's really weird, right? I try to always think about. I think compromise is rubbish. Because somebody always ends up being unhappy about it. You know, like if I want fish and chips, you want McDonald's. I go, okay then. Well, let's go and get KFC instead then. You know? Actually, I'd be happy about that as well.
I was going to say that'd be a win-win.
Yeah. I was just saying. But so I always think. So I've always everything I try and do. I always kind of think. Look, I try and work out what the other person wants, because I want to get what I want. That makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, like if I'm dealing with staff and that sort of thing, I want them to do a new role or a new job or get them to do something. I always kind of think, well, and it's just really about appreciating how that other person or that organisation sort of feels about it, you know, and about what they want from it. A bit vague, I know, but...
No, it makes sense. My friend he's built a restaurant in, didn't build it. He got a grade 1 or 2 listed building in Nantwich. Really nice building. And... he just said, like, you know, you can't put screws in the walls or something, or there was a whole list of stuff, like you have to put nails up only or something, or it's just like, come on.
I think what they try and do is they just try and, I mean, I'm no expert, but they just try and preserve the building.
Yeah, the way it was.
And they don't, I think they'd love you to do absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So, but then if something falls down, you can replace it. You've got to use the same materials.
Don't tell my dad that.
Oh, you know, it's like...
So it fell down. I fixed it. New extension.
But,
No, so I've got to blow a bit of smoke up your arse here, actually, because this is the accolade bit. Sorry.
Okay.
So, and they might be wrong, by the way, because I did look at your website.
If they're good, then I won't correct you.
So, 1 Michelin star, 4 AA rosettes, Surrey Life Restaurant of the Year, Good Food Guide, run up in GQ's Restaurant of the Year 2019, Square Meal Top 100. Like, that's a lot. Like, are you quite a highly driven person? Like, and that doesn't include all the sort of like personal attributes of all the marathons and triathlons and so on. Like, you seem like, because I'm chatting to you now and you seem really chilled. Like, you know, and when I was driving down here today, I thought this guy's going to be like, well, highly strung. Like, he's a chef. He does all these things.
Oh, don't worry, I have my moments.
I
have my moments.
So you must, like, a lot of personal drive, I guess.
I think it's really interesting because I think I've been quite lucky in that I've opened... I think 1, 2, 3. This is like my 4th sort of personal opening, sort of where I sort of own it, kind of thing. Or, and I know that I've made a lot of mistakes with it. And for me, the thing I love is the food. I love the food. I love being creative. I think I'm a bit of a slow burner with it as well. I think I've gradually become better and better and better and better. And I think those openings have allowed me to kind of start again almost. So when I opened Sorrel, I had a year to kind of get it open. And I had my wife, who's amazing at she's got such a good eye and the design. And, you know, she encouraged me to use an incredible designer. And we used an incredible branding company. So I think what we did was we just tried to, where I'd always focus on the food and everything else that comes second. I kind of thought, no, everything is important now, not just the food. Everything's important. So we kind of, and then in a way that enabled me to elevate everything, I thought. And then it allowed me to really focus on the food. And I've become more confident about how I want the food to be. I think we do have an individual style now. I don't want to sound too poncy, but to me it is an art form almost. Yeah. It is art. I think the whole, you know, question about is it a science and an art? Well, cooking is both, isn't it? You know, there's a, you know, but creating dishes I think is an art form really, and I love that. And so I think we've got to work with. So we've we've been able to work with some incredible people in opening the restaurant, and we've still got really great relationship with them. Like the designer Alexander, who's the most incredible designer I've ever met in my life. But even our florist from Kingfisher Farm, Marion, she comes and does all of our little table decorations and plants. And because we said no flowers, I didn't want any flowers. I just thought everyone does flowers.
Flowers are dead.
Flowers are dead. Yeah, buy me a plant, eh?
Well, it's so true, though, isn't it? Like if you always see like these inconsistencies when people talk about sustainability, and that they'll have flowers that come from Holland that are dying,
Yes.
and yet they don't really have plants.
Well, this is the whole thing about local produce. It's a lovely PR thing. So everybody wants us to say, what do you buy locally? What's the local produce? Do you this kind of thing. And it's a lot of old rubbish, really. As in, that concept is a load of rubbish. As in, yes, we absolutely use a few local suppliers here and there, but we can't get black pepper from from Guildford. Or stuff comes from all over the world, but we all just want to make ourselves feel good about it.
I always feel like, why are we trying to do this? I was doing a presentation the other day. I was in Biggleswade, and we was just going through some of the products that we've been doing. And the God's honest truth is that all our flour is British, all our bags are British made, And then I sort of laughed and I said, but the pepper, the cumin, and everything else is from India. And the guy was like, yeah, of course. But it's like, we don't. How far do you go with this whole everything's British?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, it is a bit much sometimes, isn't it? And I think I understand why big companies do it, because let's face it, a lot of the time they're traipsing ingredients from all over the world anyway, and they're trying to make themselves look good. But I think a restaurant like this doesn't have to do that.
Well, we sort of will always seek out British produce as a nice, but it's not local because I can't. So for example, we get our venison from Scotland. Mm-hmm. We'll get our lamb from the Lake District. We'll get our fish from Devon coast. We'll get our quails come from Norfolk. It's almost like we find
the best
a really good producer, and we avoid the markets so much, and we just like to go straight to Highland game for our venison in Scotland, and Norfolk quail in Norfolk, of course, and even our butter is from Northern Ireland, County Down, Abernethy butter. So we kind of seek out where we want to get stuff from. So that to me is a sensible sort of approach to do it. I can't find enough ingredients in Dorking.
Yeah.
Or even within a 10-mile radius.
No, I think like I've got two butchers that are near me. And one is inside a Dobbies garden centre, for those that don't know what a Dobbies is. And their deal with Dobbies is that they have to source all their meat from a 30-mile radius.
Wow, that's impressive.
And I think Dobbies is doing that because they're a big national group, and they're saying, well, why would people come to us?
Yeah.
Now, the other butchers is an independent guy. So to be fair, the other one's an independent too, but he's got to play by the Dobbies rules.
Yeah.
And the one that can choose from wherever he wants, the food is better. Like, the meat is better. And I'm not saying the meat's crap at the other one, because it's not. But I just feel like the other one's got more flexibility. He can choose, Scottish beef. He can, if he wants to, he can choose Welsh lamb. But he can also choose what's 30-mile radius as well, if he wants to. And I just think, saying to people, it's not a clear-cut picture saying that buying local is good. Because if it's worse, it's not good, So
I think the other thing to think about, really, is that if I want lamb, I want a consistent product.
Yeah.
So I know that if I go to the Lake District, the guys up there, amazing guys, they can send me down consistent lamb all week long. Week on week, consistent lamb. Because they're dealing with like a cooperative of small farmers, they have a specification that they want them to work to, they all agree that, and they've got a great product. If I, for example, was to use a lamb supplier near me around here, typically they can't keep up with the demand. And also, sometimes they would rather sell it in the local butchers because they can sell it for more money. I want it at trade price, where if they've got like a relatively small herd and I'm saying, well, look, I need
X.
I need 20 saddles a week, 30 saddles a week, lamb. And they're going, And they typically say, of course, well, what do we do with the legs, the shoulders? So I go, yeah, I know, it's a pain. Whereas a bigger sort of outfit can deal with that, and that can be utilised in other areas. So you need to find a balance thing of really, really good quality produce, incredible like supply chain consistency. And I think the very last thing in my mind is then you talk about the price.
Yeah.
I think you want a good product, you want it consistently supplied to you, and you want to get on with the people that you're working with as well. If there's a problem, you want to be able to deal with it relatively quickly and easily without any issues. And then you talk about money, I think, after that.
Well, you've got to talk about it at some point. I think, I think as long as it's not muddled up, as long as they're not talking about money first, because you're going to end up with lamb mince, not lamb saddles.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. I think if you're all about quality, then I think that has to be the driving factor. And of course, money is important. It's the most, without money, we can't operate. But
we touched on it earlier when we were chatting, and it was like it's almost like within hospitality, the whole topic of money is dirty. Like whether it's money from customers or money to suppliers, and why do you think that is? Like
I think with I think there's a kind of when you go out to eat, it's a real emotional decision, I think, particularly for restaurants like mine and many other restaurants where, it's your birthday or your wife's anniversary, you want to treat her or something like that. And so you come out and you make a decision, let's spend our 50th birthday at Sorrel. We don't want to mess that up for you. We really don't want to mess that one up. So, and then when you start talking about money, it's like, well...
soiling it.
Yeah, you're kind of like, well, that's not... Now, of course, people look at the price online.
Yeah.
We never talk about money to customers. If I go out to a restaurant and I say, the sommelier comes over and he says, oh, what can I... And what I do is I say, great, I'm going to have, as you know, I'm eating this. I want to spend X on wine.
Yeah. So you let them choose then?
I might let them choose, but I say, look, I'm looking to spend around this kind of money. And that's, so I don't mind doing it.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of a bit of a fine line how people do not like talking about money at the table.
It's weird, like, because you don't want to question. I always, I'm probably like a nervous buyer, but like in a restaurant, a nice restaurant, if it's whiskey, I'll generally buy what I want because I like whiskey.
Yeah.
So, but if it's like a wine, I don't know a lot about wine. I instinctively, my brain says more is better, and I don't know why. I just think, well, it must be.
I guess that's what we all think in life, isn't it?
Oh, is it?
But there's things like little tricks we do. Like, so rather than say to the guest, okay, there's this bottle of wine, it's got to cost you 50 quid. There's this bottle that's 75, or this bottle's at 100.
Yeah.
And then look, the customer's sitting there thinking, well, my friends are going to think I'm a cheapskate.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go. So what we do, we just point at the wine.
Yeah.
Like on the list, we say, "You mean this one, sir?"
Yeah.
Like blah blah blah. This is one you want, and almost like just so it's really obvious what they're choosing, and because we don't want any sort of comeback or you've sold us this wine that's too expensive and blah blah blah.
Yeah. You don't want to be like that person that sells the balloon to kids, do you? And the parents are like, "Here we go, like, it's £10 for this balloon," and the kids are like, I want it.
Yeah.
Like, you walk off and he's lost the balloon. No, but it is a bit like, you're right. You don't want your guests to feel uncomfortable, and you want them to also enjoy what they bought as well. So, and if they felt like it was too cheap, then they probably wouldn't enjoy that either. Or if the quality wasn't to their standard.
Well, we always say that if you don't like it, we'll change. If we give a recommendation, we'll always say, if you don't like it, we'll change it.
Oh, really?
Right? We've never ever had to do it.
Oh, fair enough.
Never had to do it,
Yeah.
because it's kind of that thing where you're getting that out of the way. I think the fear of a customer is if you're giving a recommendation, some might have a fear that, what if I don't like it? What if I'm going to feel embarrassed and go like that? So you just immediately say, no, if you don't like it, we'll change it. It's no problem. We can sell it by the glass.
Yeah,
it's
get
no
used.
biggie. Yeah. Or we'll have a glass later. We'll just have a drink.
So I was on Twitter recently. I didn't realise that was a thing. Obviously, it was obvious because you're in a restaurant. But one guy puts on Twitter, he goes, the government's inability to tell us blah, 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 having a bit of a rant. All these bottles of wine. So everyone's like, look, don't be out of pocket. I'll buy them off you. Some guy goes, well, no, we're going to drink them. And I was like, What are you moaning about then? Like, why are you moaning? Like,
Yeah.
if you're going to drink them and the staff are going to drink them, are you just having a dig at the government, basically?
Yeah.
Like, So, one thing I was wondering, and it might be old news, but what sort of made you want to be a chef? I saw something about a transport calf and you was making bacon sandwiches, which seems like a great job because I love bacon. But and that just might be a bit of PR bluff. Like, tell us, like, what made you want to be a chef? Like,
I think when I was at school, I wasn't engaged with school. I had a bit of a rubbish upbringing. It was pretty rubbish. My sort of family situation. So I was at school and I didn't do very well. My parents were not interested in me or the school or how I did or anything like that. So I was kind of left to my own devices.
could be related. Sorry.
Oh, stop it, Dad. It's so like I was kind of left to my own devices, and it was only in the last year. So I was like the second year of the GCSEs, 1989. And so in that like last year, which like I suddenly, it all kind of clicked for me. I suddenly got it and I understood, oh yeah, if I do well at school, I might be able to go on to other things. And it was too late, of course, because I'd missed the first year of the GCSEs by just looking at the sky, just sort of like looking out the window of the classroom. And so I did, but so the one subject I did really enjoy was home economics. And I was like me and one other guy called Gary Venus, we were just two boys and all these girls in the class. And I was really shit. I remember that the teacher just loved the fact that I put in so much effort.
Yeah.
So of all of my subjects, I was rubbish at all my subjects, apart from home economics with the cooking side of it, where I put a bit of effort in and the teacher liked me because I put some effort in. So in a way, it felt like it just had that, I didn't know what to do. So I left school. The day I left school, 16, I rung, I grabbed the yellow pages. Does anyone remember the yellow pages?
I remember. Many won't, but
I remember on Record Breaker some guy tearing them in half years ago. But anyway,
you used to do stuff like that, and you bet.
Yeah. And I remember, and I opened up. This is in Rayleigh in Essex, sort of near Southend. And I opened up the yellow pages, and there's the adverts for restaurants. And I rung the restaurant with the biggest advert. And it was cool.
Is that because they're pretty much more desperate than everyone else?
I guess. Well, I thought it was because they had more money to spend on it. And I rung them up and I said, I'd like to be a chef. And I'd literally decided that day, I'd like to be a chef. And they said, come along. And then I started as a part-time job there. And it was called the Old Vienna. It's been knocked down since. But it was a good place to start. I was there. I used to do about 3 nights a week, and then I ended up becoming full time. And I went to Southend College, Technical College, did a 706-1, the old City and Guilds thing. And then there was a lecturer there called Keith Bundy, and he had worked at the Connaught Hotel in London. And I kind of thought, wow. And he used to tell us all these stories about it, and I'd be like starry-eyed looking at him, going, wow. Sounds amazing. And previous to that, I did work in a transport cafe whilst I was at school, the Brookside Transport Cafe in Rayleigh. But anyway, so fast forward, so I was going to college, and then this college lecturer was, I was kind of like in love with this guy, because he was just telling me all about the Connaught and how it all worked. And then I decided one day, I wrote 3 letters. I wrote one to the Ritz, one to the Dorchester, one to the Savoy, because back in those days, it was all about hotel restaurants, really. And the Savoy sent me which looked like a very, 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 very long application form. Oh, God. And there's me, I'm looking at it, scratching my head. The Dorchester was closed for refurbishment at the time. And then the Ritz just said, please come along for an interview. So obviously I took the easy option.
Ritz it was.
I got on a train, I was 16 years old, and I got on a train, went up to London on my own, did an interview, then did a trial, kind of thing, and then I started at the Ritz on my 17th birthday. I moved into London and I lived at a place called the PM Club. Have you ever heard of the PM Club?
That sounds familiar, but
it was like a hostel for hospitality students in Earl's Court, and I used to share a room there, and and then and that was an incredible place to live, because you'd come back at night, you'll be there at midnight, and there'll be guys from the Savoy or guys from all the big hotels in London were all around, and
It's
all
like
the
a
clubs.
natural meeting place.
Yeah, it was really quite cool. Yeah, so I sort of got to know a lot of people there and quickly got to understand a lot of restaurants. And I met a guy there called Andrew McLeish, who's now got the incredible restaurant Chapter One, and he said to me he was working for a 2 Michelin starred chef at the time called Nico Ladenis, Chez Nico, which was on Great Portland Street at the time. And he said to me, I think they're looking for chefs, blah, blah, blah. And then I contacted Nico, went for an interview. 10 minutes late for the interview because I got out the wrong tube station. And I ran, because it was Great Portland Street, because I'm an idiot. I went to Great Portland Street tube station. But the restaurant was right at the other end of Great Portland Street, basically near Oxford Circus tube station. So I ran the whole length of it, got there, did a trial, started it, and that's really where it all sort of took off for me. Really, I sort of I was very young. I was only sort of 18, and when I look at 18-year-old chefs now, you just think how I coped in that environment. I mean, the youngest chef after me was 26, and I was 18. I was in the garnish section. Oh my God, I just got beasted every day. Honestly, it was like, it was so bad. It was like, I'd go into the toilet in the change room before every service, and I'd splash water on my face, and I'd go, I could do this. It's like so bad.
Hyping yourself up.
Oh my God, yeah, it was mad.
So one question I've got, like, you mentioned Andrew McLeish. And I always want to say those sort of names in a Scottish accent. I don't know why. And it's just me being institutional racist, apparently. But like, when you meet these people back then, did you think this guy, he's going to be a big deal? Like, do you ever look back now and think, I knew that then about these people? Or is it just you're all young lads, all having a laugh, doing your thing, and just going through the motions? It's a bit of everything.
I think sort of no, in a way, because there were like probably not hundreds, but I knew a lot of young chefs who were brilliant commies. And then as this industry has a huge churn dropout rate. And now there aren't many of those guys that I still know around still doing it. I mean, there are, of course. There's all the real, obviously Andrew's one of them, and he's an amazing chef, and but a lot of them just sort of like do other stuff, or they got out of the industry, or you just lose touch with them, to be honest. So you sort of don't know, but there's, but one thing that I know that, I was very lucky. I worked for some incredible people. But one thing I never really learnt about until I worked for myself was really how to be creative. And it took me a long time to realise it. But when I opened up Drake's on the Pond, which was just down the road from me in Abingdon Hammer, I was on my own in the kitchen, 30 cover restaurant. I did everything myself. Got a Michelin star there within, I think, about a year or something, which was pretty amazing, really. I was so sort of excited about that, and I was so driven, and I really wanted to achieve that, and it was my number one goal. But when I opened it, I realized I was just copying dishes that I'd done from Nico's, Marco Pierre White's, who I'd worked for, from Tom Aitkins at Pierre de Terre, from Aubergine. I really struggled to create anything original or new or had any kind of individuality or personality. I struggled to put my personality on it.
Is that because you weren't there to be creative before? You were there to make other people's their creativity come to life.
Yeah. And you weren't encouraged either. It was do it quick. Right,
you get it bee-sting.
Move your ass. Right?
Yeah.
If you don't do it quick, you're going to get a bee sting, and that was it. And you had to replicate. And I was actually quite good at that. As in, I was good at following instructions, taking orders. I was good at working quickly. So in a way, I think I got on quite well on that side of things.
How long did that transition take for you? Would you say?
Oh my golly, a long time. I would say it took me 5 years.
Wow. Okay.
I suppose what I mean is that I do think I've always been creative, but I haven't created an environment for myself to be creative in.
Yeah.
And I mean that more mentally than sort of physically, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. As in, I kind of felt that I had to work in a particular way because I felt I'd been institutionalized by working for all these 3 Michelin, 2 Michelin starred chefs, and you have to work like this. Well, that's why, you look at people like Heston and Raymond Blanc and Sat Baines, who are, largely self-taught, I think. I think they haven't had that baggage, I guess, of, no, every time you make a butter sauce, you must make it this way. That's the correct way of doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas those guys, I think, thought, well, okay, how do we make a butter sauce? And, they probably came at it from a different angle. And it took me a while to kind of get out of that.
Liberate yourself.
Yeah, and it feels amazing now to do that. It's just absolutely amazing.
That's why I love the Harold McGee book. Have you ever read it?
Oh, yes.
I love that book because it scraps everything that everyone talks about, and it's the science of how to do things. Before that, you'd be like, I've got to check out what such and such says. And now it's like, actually, no.
But it's not really, I don't tend to sort of go down that sort of molecular sort of road myself too much.
Yeah.
But what I love to do is to sort of balance intriguing sort of flavours and combinations and textures and stuff. I absolutely love it. I love creating dishes that are super tasty, and we've got quite a loyal customer base here. So I might put something, I don't know, like green strawberries with broccoli and stuff like that, or something like that, or black olive with banana and stuff like that. And I've kind of, I think it's important that we get the right balance of being intriguing and interesting and delicious without trying to be different for the sake of being different, and without being a try-hard. My son actually said it's the word now the kids use is called "don't be a sweat."
Oh, really?
I hadn't heard of it before. Apparently, it's a try-hard, a sweat.
I've not heard of that.
Don't be a sweat. He's only 9. He said to me, "Steve, you've been a sweat." And I said, "What?" so it's like, so he's I think it's important that it feels sort of natural and normal. So like, I always use the example of like black olive. If you do like make a black olive praline, well, how different is that from a salted caramel? Salty olives. But, so in a way, it's a logical thing that you can do, and it tastes amazing.
I suppose if you stick to the main flavour groups, then you're always going to be sort of close by, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, my golly, there's so many examples of like if you're using horseradish, you can use wasabi.
Yeah.
It's it's. I think you can do anything. I think Sophie Pick said once, I read that she said any flavour combination will work. You've just got to get the balance right.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Yeah,
it's a fair point. So looking at your CV, you've worked for Nico Ladenis, Marco Pierre White, William Drabble, Tom Aikens. That must have been fun. Tom Aikens was it at the time when he was like flicking people and stuff.
Tom Aikens is. He is an incredible cook. He really is, and I really like him. I didn't work for him for very long.
Yeah. What did you do?
3 months. 3 months. No, it wasn't that. No. It was that. I think at the time, I remember. I mean, the food was like incredible. Very busy on the plate at the time. But that little kitchen at Pierre de Terre was a tough little kitchen to work in. It was underground, basement kitchen. It wasn't particularly modern. The extraction didn't really work that well. And it was like the food that Tom was doing there in the environment. It was like he shouldn't have been able to have done it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
because it
doesn't seem possible.
It was a shithole, to be honest.
Well, when I went there recently, we did the podcast with David. He showed me around the kitchen.
Oh, it's amazing now.
Yeah. It is. But even so, you do look at it and think it's very tight.
Well, I went back a few years ago when they'd had all the refurb done.
Okay.
And I remember it from before. And I remember this. I thought this is like a palace. this is like a palace. But
makes you wonder. I want to know what it was like before now.
Yeah. Oh, honestly, it was just a central London basement kitchen. With a hatch. And, it was just that sort of place. But the food was incredible. And I'd say the one thing that Tom Aikens also that I learned from there was how to get a lot done in a little amount of time, in a short space of time. And that set me up really well. So when I went to open Drakes on the Pond, I kind of just, obviously I did everything myself because on my own. And I was able to do that, and I could do, obviously really good food on my own. I used to do 30 covers by myself. My golly, that was quite stressful, I have to admit. But so I think I learned, if I hadn't have gone to Pierre de Terre, I don't think I think it would have taken me longer to sort of grasp that, I think.
Yeah. And what was it like working for like these guys? Does it have an impact on you moving on, like even positive or negative? Because, you were saying getting a bee sting, for example. Like that wouldn't have been an odd thing getting roasted back then, though, would it? Like
I think the thing is, I was like flattered by, I loved the challenge of it. It was quite, these guys were, maybe I used them as father figures. I don't know, because I didn't have a great relationship with my father at the time either. So maybe I looked at these big figures, industry figures, and I wanted to please them and all this kind of thing, But one thing I never learned, and I think I would always say now to any sort of young chef, probably, go to a hotel, because you learn a bit more about the management side of things, where in these restaurants, every focus was obviously on the plate, and that's the only thing that mattered. Nothing else mattered. And so you didn't learn about management. You didn't learn about anything other than doing that as fast and as quick as you can. Where I think now it's a bit different now. I think you do, it's a bit better now. But I think that's the one thing that I wished I probably, I don't really have any regrets. Well, say that.
Go on.
We'll come to that. But I mean, with my choices that I've worked, sort of where I've gone to work, I'm really pleased and proud and really, amazed at the people I was able to work for. But I didn't learn how to run a kitchen. I didn't, and that's the thing I think about chefs. Like all chefs want to be head chef as quick as possible. Like 21, they want to be head chef, but there isn't like formal kind of training as such. You're just like, if you're good at the cooking, you'll get promoted. You just seem to get promoted. If I think it was a case with me because I could cook and do it fast and I'd please the chef. But everything else didn't matter. Whereas when you come and run your own business, suddenly you think, oh shit, what about, how do I interview a member of staff? What qualities do I look for? How do I work the team? How do I motivate the team? How can I think that was a transition.
When you were coming up, I suppose motivation wasn't an issue for these chefs, these head chefs. They didn't care whether you were motivated or not. If you weren't, you got thrown out. I guess.
Very, very, very much so. It was. I have to say, at Chez Nico, it was a really good kitchen.
Yeah.
At the time, in the kitchen, he had like Jeff Galvin was sous chef there, and Jeremy Ford was. I think he was a chef de partie. He was, Jeremy Ford's part of Restaurant Associates now. He's doing well. And there was such a Paul Rhodes of Rhodes Bakeries. Now he was the head chef at the time, and it was a really, really good kitchen actually. Really organised. Probably the most organised kitchen I've ever worked in.
So if you sort of go work at a place like that with Chez Nico, and you can impress the team, impress the boss, because obviously the head chef's going to tell the boss as such. Does that sort of help you when you want to go to the next place, I guess? Because then it's like, oh, you work there and they've got no complaints about it.
No, because they were all at each other's throats at the time.
Oh, right.
There was so much competition. At the time, there was only... how many 3-stars were there? There was, obviously, the Waterside, 3 stars forever. But I think at that point, in 1995, I think Chez Nico and Marco both got their 3 stars at the same time, I think. And they were all so ultra competitive with each other.
They weren't like mates. How you doing, bud?
I don't think they were. No. I don't. I think I told Nico that I wanted to go and work for Marco, and he went, "Why do you want to go there?"
He looked completely astounded.
Yeah, and I love Nico because he lives in Esher, just down the road, and I worked for him twice, and I think I get a bit of a. I don't know, I think he's a bit of a mentor for me, but...
it's got to be a compliment if he gave you a second job.
Yeah, well... or he was just desperate. I think he was just desperate. Yeah,
but what was the transition like, going from someone like Nico then to Marco?
So that was quite a rude awakening, really, because Nico... So Nico was never in the kitchen. I saw him generally in the year and a half I worked at the Park Lane site. I think I saw him in the kitchen twice. He would go out front. He was in his 60s. He'd be out front, and in a way, I think it really, really worked well because Paul would go and see him. He'd talk to him about the dishes. Paul would come in the kitchen and get it all sorted. So it was a really good atmosphere, good working environment. I thought that kind of thing. So then when I went to Marco's, it was, my golly, it was every man for himself. Honestly, it was like wow. And then it was all about pleasing Marco, and the atmosphere. From when Marco was in, for when he wasn't, it was like a switch. It was like a switch. Marco was obviously he was like he had the most incredible presence, and you could feel him in the room, in the kitchen. You just knew when he was there. Everybody reacted to it, and the minute he walked out the door, everybody just went.
It's like everyone undid their trousers for a minute.
Yeah, honestly, it was really. But I think it wasn't particularly positive in that way, because the individual chefs, I think it wasn't, obviously they were brilliant chefs and cooking great food, but it was all about pleasing Marco. It was all about pleasing Marco. And the intensity when he wasn't there on the food either. At the Oakram, and the Meridian, food was the most consistent food I've ever seen in my life. It was just so consistent, and that's not to say that the other places weren't consistent, but literally there would not be a tiny thing out of place. Everything was geared towards just making that plate look exactly like it does in his books. It was absolutely consistent, brilliant food, absolutely amazing. But I'm not always sure whether the what's the expression? The means justified the end sometimes with it, And I say here now, and I run it here. I said, I love Danny Mayer's. He kind of says that the most important thing in a restaurant is the staff. Mm-hmm. They are the single most important thing. Then I think he says something like it's then our producers and our collaborators, people we work with. And then I think it's third or fourth is the guest. Yeah. Because if we are fulfilled and we are happy, then we're going to do an amazing job for that. Where I think back in the 90s, chefs in kitchens, really, they weren't happy, most of them. Most of them were very angry young men, and it was a weird thing.
I suppose you caught Nico when he was probably a bit more mellow, but I remember reading a story about him where he ripped up someone's money because they complained or something.
Oh yeah, you've heard that. Yeah, I've heard all those stories.
Yeah. You just think but you can see how back then, I suppose maybe the customer was always right straight after the chef, but it wouldn't have been the way Danny Mayer said it.
No, and I think in those days as well, I think for Nico to do that in the 70s, he opened his restaurant in, I think, Lordship Lane, the year I was born, 1973. And I think he was in his mid-30s at the time. And the only other, smart restaurants around, I think, were Le Gavroche and a few others, a couple of them. But so they were really sort of pioneering the way forward, and so guests before that, they weren't used to eating in that way. So he's suddenly cooking this food, and he's being met with all this. Imagine if TripAdvisor was around with Nico. Imagine that.
Yeah, I went in to eat. Man ripped up money.
Yeah, it would have been amazing. I can't believe it. I tried to pay him, but he tore it up in front of me.
Told me to F off, never to come back.
Oh no! But again, he was such an incredibly passionate. Nico's a lovely man. He really is. But he was passionate. He wanted it to be brilliant. He wanted guests to understand what he wanted to do. When people didn't get it, God help them.
What do you think back then, more established? And you can't talk for them, but imagine what the feeling was like when you've got the Roux brothers, who are very institutional, they've done really well, they'd followed all the right trajectory, and then people like Nico come and Marco come with no sort of formal background.
But Marco, I mean, it feels like it was so incestuous sometimes back then, because Marco worked for Nico and he was working at the Gavroche and there's a story, I'm pretty sure this is correct actually, that I think actually that Nico and Michelle Senior. I want to say I thought they had quite a good relationship, because I think Michelle organised Nico to go to work at Roger Verger's in the south of France, the 3-star chef, for like a stage, if you like, when he was just sort of setting out. So I think they had but I don't know. I mean, it's probably the same now, isn't it? I think we all look at each other and think, what the hell are they doing sometimes?
Probably true.
But...
Yeah, I suppose the pool is bigger now, though. Like, if I mentioned a chef to you right now, I said, "Oh, do you know him?" You'd probably say, "No, I don't know him." Like,
it's massive.
Whereas back then, though, it would have been like, "Yeah, I know him." Like,
But I think for young chefs now, it's incredible. There are so many incredibly creative restaurants, and when you look back at what was around in the sort of 80s and 90s, it was mostly, I think, sort of French food. It was mostly like French classic sort of modern food. What Marco was doing at Harvey's, and we've all seen the video. It was brilliant, of course. It was absolutely brilliant. And our customers weren't ready for that, or they were just becoming ready, acclimatizing to it. But now chefs are so lucky. I mean, there is so much interesting food happening outside of London. I mean, they're so lucky.
And great ingredients across the country, like British produce.
Cheese, for example. Yeah. Cheese is like, there was a time when English cheese was a bit like English wine, I guess. It's like, how do don't let it grace my table. But now our British cheeses are incredible.
It's never as bad as American cheese, though.
Oh my God, Ian. I don't think I've ever had American. Well, I don't think I've had American. Is it that bad?
Well,
is it as bad as American chocolate?
I just feel like everything Americanized is just watered down, oiled up, and
it can be bastardized, can't it?
Yeah. Oh, I wasn't going to say that word, but you said. No, we've sworn plenty well before this, don't we? The explicit sign is going to be on the podcast. Yeah. So no, I just think working with chefs like that can be a great stepping stone in some ways, but looking back, because like you say, in the moment they're probably too busy arguing with each other anyway.
I think that it's definitely. I mean, for now. I mean, now, if people ask me, like, your career, everybody references those chefs I worked for. So in a way, it's been really helpful. I mean, I would say the single thing in my career that's helped me the most was winning the Roux Scholarship.
Yeah,
I think that. Well, it wasn't just winning it; it was also losing it twice.
Okay.
Because I won it on my third attempt. And on my first year, I was a bit of an arsehole, to be honest, I was a very, but I remember my first year I met Sat Baines, the year he won it. And then I just met so many people through it. It was amazing. I just met so many people, and then I eventually won it, and then we've been on all these jollies. Oh, sorry, educational tours.
You're allowed. You're an adult.
But where we've gone away all over the world. We've been to Tokyo. We've been to Cisco, New York.
Tell us a little bit about the Roux Scholarship, because there's many people that have heard of it, don't know nothing about it. What is it that you have to do? Do you have to get nominated to go in, or do you just nominate yourself, add yourself in? What's the sort of levels like?
So normally around autumn time, they'll put out the competition, and it will say something like, we want you to do a dish using chicken and artichokes, and we want you to make a red wine sauce, but that's it. That's all they'll say. Right? And then, then they want you to come up with a recipe, which you cost and everything like that, and then you send it in. So it's a written entry to start with. And then anonymously, the judges meet at the waterside, and they have a nice lunch, and then they go through all these entrants. And what they do, there's no names on them.
Okay.
So it was all anonymous on the actual entry forms. And they basically say, does this have potential? Is it a potentially good dish? Does the chef understand the ingredients? Are they making a few howlers here with, because you have to write your recipe and your method, and if it's quite clear that you probably don't know how to cook chicken, it's not worth. So then from that they choose 18 chefs to, and then they get invited to. Normally, it'll be at Westminster College or Ealing College, or then they do one in Manchester or Birmingham or somewhere like that. And then you have to come and you have to cook that dish. So everybody's almost using the same ingredients, pretty much, and they cook their own dish. And at the same time, you're given a mystery dessert box, and then you've got, I think it's 2.5 hours to do your dish, which should be perfect because you would have practiced it, and then you have to do this dessert, and then from that, judged, of course, and then 6 of those will go through to a grand final, which is normally in March. I think it's March. No, end of March, April. And then now this one is tricky because they basically will give you a printout of a classic Escoffier dish, and they'll say basically do that, and it'll be very technically difficult. And they basically just do that. That's it. You've got half an hour to write down how you're going to do it, your method, blah, blah, blah. And now, so everybody's got exactly the same ingredients. Everybody's got exactly the same recipe. And you'll get 6 completely different.
Because people interpret that recipe in different ways.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to interpret it.
Yeah.
And other times you need to stick to the plan. But also people just run out of time because you get I think it's 2.5 hours. So there's a real kind of time pressure. And I think typically, there are some people that do it. I mean, the first year I did it, I messed up within the first 5 minutes. And I just went, I put my head in my hands. I went, oh no! And I saw Gary Rhodes came over, and with Brian Turner, who were the judges, and they walked over, and they were sort of in a bit of a huddle, sort of near me, looking at me, sort of shaking their head, pointing at what I'd done. And what I'd done, I think they'd said something I think we had to do a best end of lamb. This is the Ersat Baines one, I think. We had to do a best end of lamb or something. And I took it off the bone. And I was so nervous and sort of stressed and and I just took it all off the bone and I cleaned all the sinew off it and all the fat off it. And then I remember Brian Turner he was thinking, I wonder has he got a different recipe? So it was like that. And then they came, and then I knew I'd messed up because I looked across and I saw that and I thought, oh no, it was such a balls up. And then after I was just I was gone. My head was gone. And then we had to do a big pomana, for example, which stuck to the pan. It was awful.
So whatever you touched just went wrong.
Yeah, it was awful. The second year, I did, what did we do? The second year, I did a lot better. But again, I ran out of time and I said to Michelle Roux at the end, I said, oh, Michelle, chef, any feedback? He said, yeah, your sauce was rubbish. I was broken. I was like, oh, yeah, you're right, it was. Yeah. And then in the last, in my third sort of year that I did it, I was it was the last year I could have entered it. From an age range point of view. So I was kind of I'm just going to go for it. I had no fear. I just went for it, head down, and just kind of had a bit of a no-nonsense sort of attitude towards it. And, do
you think that's what liberated you in a way? The fact that you just didn't care this much?
Yeah, it was kind of, I think I'd learnt from the other 2 years as well, because I'd gotten through the written entry, I'd gotten through the regional finals, I'd gotten to the final all the other years. So it was that last hurdle that I couldn't get across, I guess. And I think I probably needed a bit of practice, I guess. Yeah. Just to kind of feel,
So how important is it for someone to win something like that? What does it have, does it help the restaurant that you work at to gain more business? Does it help you get a job wherever you want? How does it what is it? I guess it's nothing direct. It's more indirect.
I think I would say it's more about the connections that you make. It's it opens a lot of doors for you.
Because you were competing against certain people.
Yeah. You just get to know a lot of people. I mean, it's not just the chefs that are involved. It's all the sponsors. And, Michelle is so generous with his time, with everything. And you mentioned the word Roux Brothers, They're just the godfathers, aren't they?
To be fair, he told you that your food was shit, and
he did.
I'd still take that off him, to be honest.
Yes, sorry, you can see that I'm still a bit broken about that one. But yeah, it's true. Yeah. It's true. He did it, and I think he was right. And in a way, I needed. Because I knew it, and he said,
I guess they're not the coddle type of people.
No,
like they're not going to say, "Oh, that sauce was great, but it needs work." No,
yeah.
It's like it was shit.
But that's what I'm like now. With my chef. As in, I will say to my chefs now, I will say something shit to them.
Yeah.
But I'll also, I'm quite careful that
shit sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. I try and say, but that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
You're on the right track.
Yeah, kind of thing. Otherwise, people just get demoralised too much.
Yeah, but I suppose they were of that generation where it didn't matter. Like, to him, it's black and white. That sauce was shit.
And it's a competition, I guess, as well.
Well, yeah, again, the problem is with competitions is that if people aren't honest enough, that you walk away with a bit of a deluded vision. Yeah. Oh, he said it was good.
So why didn't I win?
Yeah,
and exactly.
Me and my son talk about this a lot. He's 6 years old. It might seem a bit harsh, and I've mentioned it before on the podcast. But we're walking home one day from school, and he was like, "Dad, we played football." I was like, "How was it? Great. We should have won." I was like, "Did you lose?" "Yeah, he goes, "But we should have won because we were better." And I was like, "Well, if you were better, you would have won." And I think, I know it sounds harsh, but he gets it.
I think you are being a bit harsh there.
But if Michel Roux said to you, "Your sauce was great," you'd be like, "Why didn't I win?" So you got to be. I think words mean a lot.
They do. I think the football one's a good one actually, because I think if you play well, So if I felt I'd cooked well, and then you said it was shit, I think I would have been broken.
You'd still be heartbroken.
Yeah, I'd be heartbroken. But I mean, I knew it was rubbish. But if you know you've played rubbish and you lose, then you kind of think, fair enough.
We deserve to lose.
Yeah, we deserve to lose.
So, in sort of modern day times, what's COVID times been like for you?
It feels a bit like a roller coaster, I guess. And I kind of look at the year as a whole, and I think in January, February, trade just started dropping off. And I don't think any of us took it that seriously, January, February. The government didn't seem to be taking it seriously. I kind of thought it was something that was happening on the other side of the world. Didn't really matter.
China.
And then,
Just the Donald Trump voice.
No, I think he called it Kung Flu, didn't he?
That was a good one. I'm not a big fan of it, but that was a good one.
Yeah, China. And then it felt like you get to March and it suddenly crept up like really quickly upon us. Like the roller coaster suddenly took a dip, and before I knew it, we were closed. And I remember that week of closure where there was this kind of thing going around on Twitter and all this kind of stuff about, well, if we're told to close, we can claim off our insurance. Mm-hmm. If we close, we can't. It was a complete load of rubbish because none of us have been able to claim off our insurance.
No,
but we all I don't know where it came from, but that was the word on the street, if you like. And I think none of us actually bothered to look at the small print of our insurance. But
I guess under the insurance, it would be like force majeure. It would be something like act of God or something like that, which they do have clauses for, which you wouldn't be able to claim.
I think the only thing you could, if you had an outbreak at your premises, then you could claim. But
it's not what that Norovirus, whatever you call it. It's not that, is it?
So like we did. So it was quite worrying, and then I think at that point I was worried about, can we reopen the business? Because trade had been dropping off sort of prior to that. We weren't particularly flush anyway. Then thankfully furlough was introduced, so that was a huge relief for the guys and all the staff. That was a huge relief. Tried to get a loan, couldn't get a loan, and until they introduced bounce back loans, which anybody could get.
It went from no one to everyone.
It was mad. It was just mad. They just handed it over within it was ridiculous, 24 hours, I think it was.
My NatWest business manager said at one point he was processing over 100 loans a day.
That's just, you just press it enter.
I said to him, how many of those are you actually looking at? He goes, still, we'll look at it at a later date. At the moment, the government's just said
the government's
process.
Backed them. So we did that. And then when we opened on the 4th of July, it was mad. It was absolutely mad. And then what I did in between that, I looked at the business model as well, and I tweaked the business model to open up at an hour earlier at, say, 6 o'clock rather than 7. We now turn a couple of tables on a service. I never used to do that before. I used to feel really a bit coy about doing that sort of thing. We've extended lunch service. On Saturdays, we kind of don't tend to close, really, to sort of go from lunch into dinner. So it forced me to look at the business model to make us profitable. But at the same time, it was really, really busy. And I thought, well, let's make hay while the sun shines. So it was very busy, and then second lockdown was starting to become a reality or an inevitability sort of around late September, early October. People were talking about it a lot. So I thought, okay, let's prepare for this. So we sort of, back of my mind, I thought it's coming. It's definitely going to close. So when it did, it wasn't a huge surprise. And, and obviously furlough as well. So we've been able to hold station. We've now reopened. It's sort of going okay for Christmas.
Did you do any of the eat out to help out?
No.
I was going to say, probably not really a thing here, is it?
I'll tell you what, we brought one from a London restaurant, and it was 60 quid, for two, with a bottle of wine, in this incredible box with like a million little boxes inside it, packaging. Incredible branding, glossy brochure. I have got no idea how they do that for £60 and delivery.
I suppose.
I think they were keeping themselves busy.
I was going to say, if anything, it's just keeping themselves busy,
brand,
or trying to stay
alive.
afloat, maybe.
Yeah, I don't believe. I think the only. I mean, I did think seriously about doing some takeaways or stuff like that, but I think we were all just trying to keep ourselves busy. I don't think we could have made any money from it.
And when I said that eat out to help out, you didn't do that scheme at all.
Oh, sorry, that one. Yes, we did do that. It was quite straightforward for us because it was basically everyone just got a tenner off every Wednesday.
Oh, right, that's right.
So it was pretty straightforward.
Well,
that one.
my friend who opened that restaurant in Nantwich, he said he did it, and he said he didn't want to be snobbish, but he was when he said it. He said it just brought in the wrong type of customer for him. Really, like I guess he's trying to be. He's only been open a year, and he's trying to be like where you guys are. Essentially, he's moving to that direction. Yeah. And he just felt like it brought the wrong customers in.
We had people because when they like the marketing around it was 50% off.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of small print up to the value of £10. So we had lots of people ring us up and say, "My God, is there 50% off your tasting menu?" And we're going, "No, it's just going to be £10 off."
Yeah.
So for us, it wasn't. It didn't really make a lot of difference for us, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess the customers coming in spend a lot more than that per head. So it's like, it's not really.
I think. Well, the thing that has massively helped was the VAT reduction.
Yeah.
I mean, that is massive.
Yeah.
And now it's been extended till March, isn't it? And I mean, I know UK hospitality are really lobbying quite hard the government because for me, it's got to stay at fight. It's got to stay there.
I like to think of. I'm a bit over the top sometimes, and I love to sort of analyse business plans and political structures and ideas. And you know what? With Brexit going on, with COVID that's sort of decimated 2020, can you see the government, if they want another term next time round, can you see them putting the VAT up straight away?
Oh my God.
I don't see it. I just don't see it. There's a part of me that believes that they might phase it back up, like maybe like 5% at a time.
I hadn't thought about it, but as in, I don't know how they're going to pay for all of this. That's my thing.
Well, I think it's just going to be time. And also I read something that said that although it will cost the country, because we own our own currency, like the Americans own the dollar and we own this, we've got the gold set aside for it. So it's sort of like it is our money anyway. So it's not like if we were Iran, for argument's sake, they would have to get the gold, buy the dollar. Whereas we don't have to do that. We already have it. So from an economics point of view, it's easier.
I think we might be okay.
Well, I'm optimistic that we'll be better than some other countries. Yeah. But again, it's still going to be a bit of a shit show afterwards, isn't it? Let's face it. But I'm not being honest. Was it great after 2008, after the crash? It was like... It was like drearingly... Like, the whole austerity thing... Like, one thing I give credit towards, like, the current administration, like Boris and all that lot... They've got enthusiasm about the country. Like if you ever look at Theresa May or David Cameron talk about the UK before, it was just like, you just wanted to fall asleep. Whereas now, at least, like when I know it sounds a bit wordy when he says, back Britain and all this, and punches his fist and all that. But I don't know, is it wrong to have optimism about the country you live in?
I don't think it isn't. But I think people's issue with Boris is the fact that he's not always comes across as being sincere.
Probably,
I think.
Yeah.
But I think that I think he's like a wartime prime minister. Like we're in a war. Well, I'm overplaying it a bit, but we're in a war type scenario where the government have got to think on their feet, act quickly, keep the public motivated, keep the public on side. I mean, the whole Christmas thing is going to be crazy, I think.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I feel it's likely that there will be, we'll all be in tier 3 in middle of January.
Yeah, I can see it now, can't you?
I can imagine we'll all be closed.
They might just pee us off with a tier 4 just to really put us in our place.
Suddenly.
Just to really put us all in our place.
Add a tier 4.
Because you know that no one's really going to follow the rules over Christmas. And I think the police...
they don't need to. I think enough people do. So I think
exactly. They know that... Yeah.
There's enough goody two-shoes out there, if you like, which I include myself in.
I was going to say,
you know.
Chill your beans.
Yeah, you know, it's like there's enough of us, I think, that would follow the rules, but people are going to bend them a bit.
I think what I do again, like just to reinforce this, I think Boris doesn't. I don't think COVID's his war. I think Brexit is his war, and I think if you look at him before that, like the enthusiasm came from there. You look at look just between him and Theresa May, like. The rhetoric was just so different. He came out of the gates punching.
He does, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things that he's done that have been a bit people have not been that impressed with.
Of course, he's a politician, isn't he?
I mean, he's a different style of leader.
Yeah.
To, you know, like to Tony Blair, if you like.
Yeah.
But I do think right now we kind of need someone like that.
Yeah, it's true.
Just say, look, we're just going to grab it by the throat.
Yeah, whichever. You did work for Marco.
just go get it done. Yeah.
But I think ultimately, though, I think more than anything, I think a lot of people think that they're going to like stuff us after this, the government, and I don't really see it. I think that. You know, again, if I look at his record in London back in the day when he was mayor, he's a populist mayor. He's not far right like everyone believes. He's a populist. He's very much centre to right. Yeah, him and Rishi are going to want to really stimulate this economy, and they're going to need to with everything that's happening as well. So
going to have to. Yeah, it'll be really interesting what happens next year.
Yeah,
very interesting.
I really think low VAT is probably got to be here to stay for a little bit, at least on hospitality. I think, and I'm not being funny. It's a no-brainer. I'm not being funny. Like, when you started in business back in the day, 20 years ago, give or take, 18 years ago?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
Eating out was probably seen as a luxury. Maybe that was starting to fizzle out a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not anymore. I'm not being funny.
Well, there was a big boom, wasn't there, with the high street chains. So now that sort of mid-market... I mean, sometimes people probably go out once or twice a week to a Pizza Express or a Co or something like that. Yeah, whereas before the chains were around, there were lots of independents on the high street. Some were good, some weren't so good. Where at least with chains, they're quite consistent. So I think for us, it's. I mean, we've found that our demographic has widened hugely, and now we have. So when I had Drake's restaurant. Like, was it 14 years, was it? I can't remember now. It was mostly sort of slightly older people. I would say 50 plus. Although I'm knocking on that myself now. So, but no, it was sort of slightly older demographic, I think. You know, whereas now, and I think it's a combination of social media, combination of I think the decor that we've created here as well, and the type of food that we cook as well, because we don't do classic French or anything. You know, suddenly we have. You know, I think our demo is hugely, it's widened hugely. We have people in their early 20s, quite a lot of those, lots and lots of 30-somethings here now, as well as like the slightly older crowd, if you like, for the lunches and stuff. So it's kind of helped business in a way.
Yeah. I think low VAT just needs to stay now. I think. You know, how many people do you know in your industry that actually drop their prices because they dropped their VAT by 15%?
I don't know anybody. Other than some of the chains did it, I think.
No, I don't think they did either.
No, wasn't there some that were passing it on?
Oh, come on. They said that. No. Like, I'm not being funny. Like, Costa Coffee. Yeah, I don't know if I told you about it a few weeks ago. Like, one of the chaps that I know that does their EPOS systems, he says that they rang up to say, how can we change the VAT thing? You know, where it says 5% or 20%. So they did, but the price is still the same.
Yeah.
So they've just changed a little bit on the paper where it says 5%.
Yeah.
So the VAT contribution is less, but the price of the coffee is the same. But they'll say we passed it on. No, they didn't.
I don't think anybody can afford to pass it
on. No, I was going to say, it's not that type of VAT reduction, is it? It's not like... I think initially it's there to sort of give you guys that leeway, that sort of...
leg up, really,
exactly.
I mean, I think we all felt that the help out to eat out was for the customers.
For that, yes.
or eat out to help out. Sorry, was the, and then the VAT was more so to help the businesses.
I think because the government left it a bit open-ended for you, and it was a bit like, and you know that usually VAT is something that flows up and down with. You don't factor it in really. It's never yours. You don't class it into your turnover. So when they then said we're dropping it to 5%, I think there was a little bit of confusion initially, and I bet there was lots of phone calls between friends saying, "Are you dropping it? No, are you dropping it?"
Yeah, there was. Yeah.
And I remember for that sort of week when they announced it. No, it was about 2 weeks, I think. I must have spoke to about 30, 40 customers. They were like, at the beginning, it was like, I think I'm going to have to pass it. I'm going to have to pass it because if everyone else does, what we're going to do? And then literally everyone sort of shifted towards the end of those 2 weeks when they were about to say something, and they were like, I might do it if customers say something, but if they don't, I'm just going to leave it because it's there to sort of build up a nest egg. And I think that the whole perception of that VAT sort of changed. It was,
we had one guest who I know quite well, and we were really unsure at the start, so we weren't very confident about it. And then I don't think I gave the right message for the guys on the floor. Tray, if that makes sense. So one of my guys on the floor was chatting to this customer, and he basically turned around to me and said, "Look, just tell us you're not passing it on. Don't faff around. It's fine." He said, "Just don't faff around with it. Just just tell us it's fine." So after that, it was fine. After that, nobody has mentioned it at all.
Actually, and here's where I'm wrong though. Well, right or wrong, I don't know. You tell me. In our industry, the fish and chip industry, I can see why people would notice it, because if you've always gone to a chip shop and let's say something was £6, and now it's not £5.80 or £5.50 or whatever, you'll notice it. But in here, surely your menus change a bit more. They flow a bit more than, or do people still notice it then?
Nobody's mentioned it.
I was going to say
no. I mean, it's 20%. Well, it would be a 15% saving off your food bill. I guess, but. For us, our suppliers. I mean, well, so opening up last week, half of our suppliers aren't up and running yet.
Yeah.
So everyone's struggling. So we all needed to keep our businesses afloat.
Yeah.
I was just saying, I've just loaded my car full of laundry because our laundry, I think their guys are back off furlough today, and I've been open for a week, so I've got to drive my laundry down to them to get some clean stuff because we've got a mega crazy week with Christmas ahead.
Yeah.
So I just think businesses like us have been able to think quickly, react quickly, make changes very quickly, and I think we've needed to survive. And I think it's touch wood, hopefully we'll be okay.
So we spoke about how there's now lots and lots of middle of the road. I don't mean quality wise, but sort of value for money, middle of the road sort of restaurants, QSR as they call it. How has that sort of been, and how do you think, we mentioned earlier before we were setting up as well, like how the restaurant business is sort of fucked, the model's broke. Yeah. Do these all tie in together? What's your thoughts there?
I think that the way I look at it, right, I remember when I started at the Ritz Hotel back in 1990, started the Ritz Hotel, and I remember the waiters there. This is the old days. They were on, and I'm just plucking these figures out of the air, but they were on, I don't know, £8,000 or £9,000 a year as their salary, and then they were given, but then they would make up their salary and all these tips that they would get, from the floor. And now, of course, minimum wages come in. Tips are not made up of salary anymore. You're not allowed to use them for salary anymore. So it means that they've changed that. So therefore, but we've still got this attitude of the waiting staff should receive all the tips straight into their sort of pocket. And so the business model for the restaurant side is that we now would have to pay a waiter probably double what we would have to if they were reliant more on the tips, if that makes sense. So it means that the wage bill in restaurants goes from 30% up to, at this sort of Michelin-starred standalone restaurant, our wage bill at one point was hitting 40%, and it wasn't sustainable. We've been able to tweak things behind the scenes, but I think that the business model for these types of restaurants that we're in, you've got to do volume now. I think you've got to do volume, and I think it's been unhelpful that there isn't more clarity around tipping, service charge, minimum wage. That kind of conundrum causes us issues, like financial issues.
So if you could clear it up in an ideal world, what do you think most chefs or restaurateurs would want? If you could explain it to someone in government, what do you think collectively most chefs or restaurateurs would they want?
It's a tricky one because there is so much confusion about what service charge is, about what tipping is. Like, so if you're my waiter and I give you £10 and say I want you to have that £10, you've done a great job tonight for me, but then you've got to pay PAYE on that.
Yeah.
It's all got to be taxed. It's got to be as part of your income. And then I always think, well, what about the guy washing the plates? Does he not deserve a bit? Or even the chef that's helped? And traditionally, the chefs would be on a higher wage, wouldn't they? And the front of house would be on a lower wage to make it up with the tips. So I don't really know what the answer is yet. But it's whether we go back to that old system of tipping. I don't know, if I'm honest.
I think you see a lot of places in America, like I know Danny Mayer tried to sort of like get rid of it a little bit, and he sort of stumbled a little bit, and now he's bringing it back. And I think Americans just like to show gratitude with tips.
Did you see that the Gavroche, like, so they've when obviously they were sort of like, there was a bit of news story about their tipping and stuff like that, and now they don't have a service charge either. They've just upped their price. So there's no service charge, there's no tipping, there's nothing. They've just upped their price. And I think that for them, that's a good solution to it.
But it's like Gavroche, isn't it? Like, well, and is that the wrong way to think about it? I don't know. Like,
I don't know. But the trouble is that restaurants, like, the way I look at it, for every like £100 that a customer might spend, or £10 or whatever, it was the case that £20 of that was VAT, and then after that you've got 80 quid left. 30 odd % of that 80 quid is on your staff. 30% of that 80 quid is on your cost of sales. And then you've got this other 30 odd %. But the minute your 30 odd % of your staff wages goes up to 40%, and then suddenly you're eating into that other 30%, if you like, that pays for your tablecloths, which pays for your heating and lighting. So that it's very, very, very tight.
I suppose I think in some ways, I do like the idea of just so I always feel nervous. I always tip. I always feel nervous. Like I talked about my accounts guy earlier. I hate it when I tip. He's like, oh, you should never tip. Why are you tipping? I don't know how to account for it in the books. And I'm like, I just tip. I felt nervous. I always felt nervous. And it's like, then what restaurant deserves it and what doesn't? You don't tip when you go Nando's. You don't tip when you go.
If there's a service charge on there as well, you think, well, that's
then
covered off.
Exactly.
And I think that's a lot, so much more straightforward. Yeah. And then you just think, because people say, well, how much do we leave? How do we? And you just think, well, no, the service charge sort of covers that one off. But even like in taxis, like I used to tip taxis, and I don't know why, and hairdressers, and I'm not really sure why you do that. But with Uber now, it's just all paid for over the app, so you tend not to tip.
Yeah, I think with the barbers or something, I just round up. So if it's like 17 or whatever it is, I haven't been for ages, as you can tell.
Well, that's true. They do that. Yeah, it's never 20 quid or 15. It's always like
17, and you know that you're just going to leave a 20 and walk out.
Yeah.
Well, if unless you need a couple of quid to go somewhere else after. But I don't know. I always feel a bit weird. I don't know. Like, and so what does service charge cover? And make it really obvious, it's just service.
Yeah.
But then some people would say, but I paid for that in the meal anyway. So it's like, so then Gavroche is right to say, let's just stick it on the meal then. If that's.
I think service charge, I think, is a way of getting around using. Unfortunately, it's a way that restaurants get around using tip money, if you like, to pay wages.
Okay.
Because people have trunk systems set up. And so what they're saying is, don't leave it. What the industry's saying is, like, don't leave a cash tip necessarily. You don't have to. It's far more straightforward. Give us a service charge.
Yeah.
Then
We'll distribute it.
Then we're allowed to use that as part of the wage bill.
Okay.
And whereas a lot of places do a trunk system now, which is separate. But I think it's like, it's not really solving a problem. I think a service charge to me is a loophole that the industry has found to be able to use tip money in inverted commas to go towards a wage bill. And it just doesn't feel right. It feels a bit weird.
Yeah. And so for you sort of feel that being a chef as well, like if let's say a load of tips come in, you put them in a pot and you share it between the whole team as opposed to just front of house.
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, there is an argument to say, you know, you can have a point system or a percentage system for particular, you know, because you want to motivate the front of house staff necessarily. But there isn't really that much money to sort of do that with now. So it's, but yeah, I do think it should be distributed between a whole team.
Yeah,
I think so.
That makes sense. So one thing that what I always think about, and you mentioned it earlier about being sort of a leader. You've worked with, again, you're highly motivated. You've worked with highly motivated chefs of a different kind, and obviously of a different era. I guess chefs like that don't really exist anymore, do they? The likes of Nico and Nico in his day and Marco in his day. I guess maybe they do. You know, but like, how do you motivate staff in these days without sort of demotivating them on accident or making them feel a bit crap? And obviously they talk about how millennials today, and well, not so much millennials, but the Gen Z are a bit softer, let's say, without being insulting. You can't treat them in this certain way. Yeah. You know, and then we all know that I was brought up in the food industry, fast food industry, fish and chips, and I always thought that maybe we just played too many jokes there. And then when I talk to chefs, it's like, whoa, they're worse than us. Like, you know, and that does that still happen?
No, you can't really. I mean, I remember, my God, you know, like, you'd get trashed in kitchens, you know, like if you were leaving, you'd be like, you know, there was proper initiation ceremonies and all sorts of stuff going on. But I think now you do have to be, and also I'm the boss. So what may or may not happen with having a laugh outside, you know, that's up to them. But generally, I think we have to be a bit more sort of sensible, I guess, about the whole thing. And I think the way my biggest thing with the chefs is that I always focus on the food. So I feel that I run the whole business sort of almost with the food at its focal point, if you like, focus of it. So for the chefs in particular, I know that changing my menus, creating new dishes with them, really motivates them. Chefs love it. All chefs want to be is creative. Some of them are creative, some of them aren't, some of them. But I think most chefs I meet want to be creative. So what I tend to do now, at sort of my stage, is that I think there was a point where I would create all the new dishes, I would do it all, then I would hand it over to the chef de partie, if you like, and and say, okay, and then we'd work on it. Where now I tend to actually talk to the chef about, look, I want to do this. You know, can you make this puree? Can you put that with it? Can we try that? And so I get them to do a lot of the work now, and then I taste it with them, and we work on it for a few days, and that I find is hugely motivating, because I never got that when I was training as a chef, and I kind of think that's what chefs want. I mean, I've got a really incredible kitchen brigade here. Incredible. I've got 3 of them have been with me since I have opened, 3 years. The other guys are just so motivated, so professional, and I think that's what we look for. Like, always look for chefs that are interested in food. I always ask chefs, what do you like to eat? What do you like to cook? What do you love about cooking? Their CV, yes, is important. And equally, like front of house staff, I only employ front of house staff mostly based on their personality. Yeah. You know, because, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, you can teach somebody to put a plate of food down, really, you know, and to put some cutlery down. But you can't teach somebody to be happy and pleasant and nice and have a, you know, with a guest. So I've kind of learnt the hard way as well, a lot.
I met a chef once, and he didn't like food. He just wasn't inspired. I don't know whether it was just a part-time thing that he was just fed up of it or what. But
Yeah.
I said to him, "What do we eat at home?" And he's just like, anything, pot noodle, like anything, like.
Well, I think that's true. I mean, I think when we get home, we're so fed up with doing all our fancy pants food sometimes that we do like to sort of veg out a bit with it. But
Yeah, no, he just goes like, "I'm not a foodie," and that made me think, like, because food is a modern thing, isn't it? Really, like.
I don't think I'm a foodie in the respect of that. I only know sort of my food and what I like. As in, I'm not one of these people that know all the latest trends, follow all the latest people on Instagram necessarily, and what the fashions are. You know, I don't always watch MasterChef. It's like, honestly, every day I get asked, "Did you see MasterChef last night?" from the guests and stuff, and I say, "No, I didn't see it." And I don't get me wrong, I do enjoy it. It's a great show to watch, but I'm not a foodie in that sense. I just like doing. I just love the creative, artistic side of it.
Yeah. So you don't watch MasterChef professionals and shout, "Oh my God, he used pepperoni instead of this." Like,
yeah, I know. I have to admit. I mean, I think I have to say, you know, when you watch like Marcus on there, when he does that little dish in like 20 minutes or something.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's a real craftsman.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think it's so unfair on those poor chefs because he's like, you know, an incredible chef, years and years of experience, and he makes that look really simple and easy.
Yeah.
And what he's asked him to do isn't. It's not, but it's a TV show.
Yeah,
So
no, exactly. And he would have had some help, and someone did some prep in the background.
Yeah, probably.
You know,
yeah,
like...
or perhaps he messed it up a couple of times.
Also,
Had to redo it.
I you know, I'm not going to profess that I'm a movie producer or anything, but a while back, you know, we made some videos for Sarah's, and they can be cut in a certain way as well. That,
Yeah.
You know, and everyone thinks, "Oh wow!" Like, and you think,
Yeah.
no, we just cut it to make it shorter. So I do think that if you give someone like ITV, Channel 4, BBC,
The TV shows are incredible at it. And I remember I used to watch a few of those like Nigella programs, and she would basically, it felt like within 5 minutes she had produced a 3-course meal, you know, and
And went to the shops.
and be able to put her makeup on and all that kind
The
of
problem
stuff.
with Nigella is I can't watch her because she just makes me too hungry.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
well, you
Okay.
think I was going to say something else?
two ...
No, I just watch it and I'm just like, I've eaten. And like watching her and
Yeah.
you're like, yeah. And so all of these cookery shows, do you think, well, not just cookery shows, chefing shows, competitions and everything, do you think it drives more people into the industry, or has it not made a difference?
Oh, I think MasterChef has been a game changer.
Yeah.
I think MasterChef. Do you remember the old MasterChef with Lloyd Grossman?
Oh, yes.
That was like in the studio. That was incredible. But
Sublime.
yeah, I really like what you've done. The chefs really.
That was that almost. You know, someone gave me an Escoffier book once as a present, and I don't know why, but I think of that MasterChef, the colours, the browns, the beiges.
Yeah, but no, but the news. I think it's incredible. And one year I watched the Australian version.
Yeah.
Which I thought was brilliant. I thought it was absolutely brilliant the way they do it, and I just think that get to see, like, particularly we're in the latter stages of the competition, they go all around the world to these incredible restaurants and these artists, you know, these incredibly creative chefs, and so Joe Public, if you like, gets to see all of this. You know, I mean. I think MasterChef is an incredible show. You know, I was really lucky. Last year I was on the chef's table thing, and it was such a brilliant experience because what the chefs cooked as well. Well, there was 4 chefs. 2 of the dishes weren't so good, but 2 of them were brilliant. And the guy that won it, I think Stewart, his dish, he did a pork langoustine with black pudding, and it was. I think like a Thai green sauce. It was incredible. He did a great dish. So, you know, the quality of what they're cooking at is amazing.
I think he's working at Simpsons now in Birmingham.
Is he?
I think.
Okay,
Yeah, we're doing some sort of collaboration there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it must be really tough for these guys because there's not much work around.
No.
Well, there is and then there isn't, you know, when the lockdown happens.
I think now's a good time for people to be enterprising, try things that they may be embarrassed to try before. Or, you know, because everyone's afraid of failure, like whatever we say. Like, especially someone that's been on a TV show. Like, you don't want to do something that makes you look a bit crap or desperate. But COVID has sort of allowed people to be... again, it liberates people to try things. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like I saw Sat Baines was selling like a buck. It's products he needs to. It's because he can and he wants to. But I guess, he probably could have done that any time, to be fair. So it's not a fair example. But, I think that it just means that anyone can sort of do what they want, whether it's food at home or takeaway or retail.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine, I don't know, Le Gavroche doing hampers? I mean, they're doing hampers now. Before
this, no. What are you doing?
And
would they have even considered it?
Yeah, probably not. But, I mean, I think we've all had to really think carefully about how we can diversify our businesses.
There was that. I don't know if it's called the Sticky Walnut Group, but it's that Gary Usher guy, and he put a tweet on the other day, and he says, I don't know, something about how hard it was to get the restaurants. I'm paraphrasing. So, and he says, but now I've got who'd have thought that the best part of my business or the busiest part of my business would be sending food to people's houses. Yeah, and you think again, before that, if you said to me, mate, you need to send people food to people's houses, I'd be like, nah, I get lost. And now it's like it's liberated people to I don't know, think outside of their restaurant maybe.
Well, and also all our small independent restaurants, it's all on the line.
Yeah.
It's sort of make or break. We want to survive this.
You were in business after 2008.
Yeah.
When that crash,
yes,
I guess.
Yeah.
Just in comparison, what were they like to this?
Well, back then, I remember, again, we were a Michelin-starred restaurant. So in a way, we're quite lucky. We were a little bit isolated.
Yeah.
I remember we lost all corporate.
Okay.
I think back then,
lunchtime dining and so on.
Yeah, the banks and the pharmaceutical companies that used to come in and spend a fortune suddenly didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, that was a point when I realised that there's no point kind of relying on big tables.
Mm-hmm.
And so really we tend to focus more on our twos and fours. Our bread and butter is twos and fours. And big tables, they can come, they can go. And so I think back then I kind of thought just focus on that. So we don't really have a private room or anything here. But whereas I think so we didn't really notice a huge drop off, but obviously we probably wanted to put our prices up, but we didn't. And we kind of just kept sort of ticking over, and I think it was okay. Where this time, of course, I think it's completely different actually, because we were actually told to close for three months, and now an extra month in November as well, close. So I think, but when we're open, it's busy. People want to come out, they really do. So the fact that we've lost 3 or 4 months worth of trade this year, but when we've been open, and most people I speak to, restaurants are busy.
Yeah.
So I think that's a positive to take from it. Let's just hope that...
I suppose it has been fast changing. So what is going on now might not be the case in March. Let's say when loads of people have been vaccinated. You'd hope that maybe the people that have been locked in the house for that long do want to come out, do want to go out for lunch.
Yeah, I imagine that some of these rules are going to be here to stay now. I still think there's going to be... I mean, when restaurants are designed and built in the future, there's going to be sort of... a COVID thought there, I guess, about, well, okay, how many tables can we actually get in?
Yeah.
How the toilets are designed, the flow of customers walking through the restaurant and stuff like that. And I think now this is a massive game changer, I think, for all of us, I think.
Yeah. One thought while we're talking about all this is you've been self-employed for a while now, and when you look back at any decision that was made and maybe someone that you worked for and you thought maybe it was unfair at the time, a bit like parenthood, have you sort of grown into this and thought they were right? I understood why they did that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And also now, I think in the kitchen as a chef, you kind of think, as a young chef, you kind of think, why the chefs, the owner's really tight, I only get 1 oven cloth a day or 2 oven cloths a day. But then now as an owner, you think, my laundry bill is quite a lot of money here, and sort of silly little things like that. Why can't you drink the restaurant coffee? Why do we have to drink the instant or the other stuff? Well, those pods cost us, quite a lot of money, and certainly. I always say to them, I'm looking at everything. You're looking at this, and so but everything I do is geared towards quality and creativity of the food, and every decision I make is based around that.
Mm. And you did a few stages in France. Would you say France is still like? Well, there were stages, weren't they?
Yeah.
So would you say that is still the place to go? Like, is it still the food sort of like? I suppose it is in Michelin eyes, but for everyone else, is it the place?
I've always well apparently Japan has taken over with the amount of 3 stars and stuff, but I think I've been saying for years, and maybe we've come out the back of this now, that I think France has been sort of slow to catch up with the world food revolution. But I've thought for a while that all the really brilliant young chefs, French chefs, are not in France right now. I can imagine they're in America, they're in Australia, they're in Japan, they're in Britain, they're in Scandinavia. And I think when they all eventually go back home and open up restaurants,
they'll have an upswing. France
will be because they've got it in their pedigree, aren't they? You know, French are born with saucepans in their hands, ladles, and so I've always felt that when they eventually go home, because people do tend to go home and they open up their restaurants, that the food will be, and I think that's starting to happen now. I think it is now, and I think give it another 10 years, I imagine that France will be sort of back on top, if you like.
Yeah, that makes sense. And do you think, like, with your sort of leadership, have you leading the team now, have you sort of learnt the hard way? Have you read books? Have you sort of had help? Is there anything that sort of helped you in that respect, or is it just trial and error?
A lot of trial and error. Mostly error, to be honest. I have tried to read a few bits about sort of management and about how not to be so reactionary and how to plan better. And I think also, like, my role has changed constantly. So I went from being a sole chef at Drake's on the Pond to now we've got about 20 staff here, and I can't work how I worked back then on my own, and so I've every year or two I've had to reassess sort of where I'm at, what I'm doing, and I've become better and better and better at it. And I think that's reflected in the quality of staff that we have. I mean, they're brilliant staff. And I think I've looked for different attributes in staff. I mean, when I first started, I didn't know how to interview somebody. I just said, have you got a pair of arms, pair of legs, got some knives, start. Whereas now I don't. I look at it completely differently, and I just look at people's attitude and how and I look at their body language in the kitchen and how they move around the kitchen and how interested they are. So if somebody comes for an interview now, or like a trial, if you like, I don't really talk to them that much. As in, I let them just work with the team and the guys, and I just watch them from a distance, and I just see how they interact. Do they look interested? Do they have the skills?
So you wouldn't always. So if you had like 2 CVs in front of you, and both the people were so let's say one person was highly competent, but wasn't really a team player, but the other person was less competent because they're a bit newer at it. Let's say not crapper, but just less into it. Would you take the person who just shows a lot more enthusiasm? Do you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we suffer from being in Dorking because we'll have people come from London thinking, let's go to Dorking because it'll be a lot easier.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's not. This is a tough place to work. We do very, very busy. We've got huge high standards. So sometimes we have people that feel that they've done it all already.
Yeah.
But then they're coming out to sort of sleepy Dorking, sleepy Surrey, if you like, and then and then it's quite a rude awakening for them. That you actually work incredibly hard here. So for me, it's all about. Depending on the level that you're looking at, but it's all about attitude, and just getting stuck in as well.
Yeah.
And being really interested. It's really important they're interested, because it's important that after a really busy week, let's say you got Saturday night, everyone's really tired, they've had a long week, and people need to create good food for themselves, not just for me. Can't just do it because I'm looking there. Poking my finger at them saying, no, do a better job. They have to do it because it's in their blood that they want. It's a bit like front of house, and I'm saying you need them with a good personality to be nice to the guests. So when they're really tired, they're still going to be nice. They're not going to be grumpy. And it's the same with the guys in the kitchen. We still want them to cook amazing food, even if they're not feeling 100%, if that makes sense. They've got to do a great job, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I think, talking like grumpy staff, there's also grumpy customers, hence, the popularity of something like TripAdvisor. And we were discussing this before when we were setting up, weren't we? And I think TripAdvisor, a lot of people hate it. I mean, I don't really hear a lot positive about it, to be honest. I don't know about you. But you mentioned earlier that you feel that it's better than it's worse.
Yeah, I think TripAdvisor is... I don't think you can... So, yes, you do need to take it seriously, but I think that it's just somebody's opinion on what you've done. And, I mean, I see chefs get really upset about TripAdvisor reviews, and they'll put them on their Twitter or on their Facebook or something, and they'll say, how dare you, look at what people have said about me. And you think, well, it's just somebody talking rubbish, or if they've got a valid point, you can look at it. But, I mean, I think TripAdvisor is quite a good tool for us because it keeps us on our toes. I sort of look at it, and if there is something negative, I think, well, did we do something wrong there? I think we did. I look into it. If we did, yeah. Did we? No, we didn't. Move on. If people turn around and say to me they hate my food, I go, well, okay, that doesn't bother me.
It seems pretty final anyway at that point, to be honest. At that point, that customer's clearly made up their mind. So they're not coming back, are they?
But no, but the thing is that I'll always say this, is that when somebody walks in the restaurant, you give them something to eat, give them something to drink, and give them a really good welcome first couple of minutes, things are more than likely going to be okay. If you get that wrong at the start, you're on a downward.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, so let's say they come in, let's say you're a bit busy, you haven't got time to say, to
proper greeting.
Yeah, proper greeting. And then, your first drink, you've driven a half an hour, or you've got on a train or a taxi. You just want a drink. I just want to nibble or something, some like a little canapé or snacks, as we call them now. I just want to eat. And then, so if you make people wait and you haven't given them a good welcome, then suddenly people go, well, ain't much good here, is it? And they start looking around. Oh yeah. Well, that's a bit dirty, isn't it? And they suddenly start looking for problems and issues
that didn't exist.
Yeah,
it's really true actually, because when you go, you're so true. I never thought of it like that. Yeah, the better the greeting. I'm trying to think of I'm just quickly trying to scan my brain and think of times I've been to a restaurant, and if the greeting's great and you sit down, you actually feel at home. You feel like, oh yeah.
Again, it's that emotional thing. That you've made an emotional decision to come out.
We made the right choice to come in, didn't we?
Yeah. Oh, because we want to feel good. We don't come out to feel bad. We come out. We want to feel good. It's my birthday. I want you to say happy bloody birthday to me, or something like that, or give me some incredible food and give me an incredible glass of wine and look after me tonight, please. That's kind of what you're saying. And so if you walk in a restaurant and the staff are a bit too, but you just don't feel looked after, and you go, well, and you're going to be a bit grumpy about it, I think.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned it earlier as well. As like, if you choose to respond and you feel like they're being unfair, you're almost just telling everyone else who's watching what actually happened, what transpired, as opposed to, and I see this sometimes where people take it upon themselves to sort of lay into the other person. And I think, I don't know if other customers like that. And
no, I think you're absolutely right. I think if you do respond to a negative review, I think you're responding to everybody that's reading that, because I think most people can read between the lines. If you have mostly positive reviews, and then you get a bad one, you think, something's gone wrong here, isn't it? Yeah. It's not normal, though, but something's gone wrong. And, if we make a mistake, I always hold my hands up. I say, I'm so sorry, we messed up. And to be honest, I don't think there are as many of those, sort of scheming, negative people out there as much as we think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are a lot of chefs that say it's a fake review, or they've made it up, or they couldn't possibly have eaten in our restaurant, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think there are many people like that, but I think sometimes we just find it hard to take the criticism, or that we've let somebody down, or that somebody doesn't like our creations.
Yeah. My mate used to he's got a fish and chip shop, and he... every time they'd get just naturally a negative review every now and then. It wasn't even that many, to be fair. But me and other friends used to refer to it as that he'd James people because his name was James. So we turned it into a thing, and because he'd literally he'd just strip everyone a new one. I was like, mate, is it not tiring? Does it not wear you down doing this? Yeah. And he's like, yeah, but I'm not gonna have it. I'm not gonna have it. Our fish weren't bad that day. Our this wasn't that bad that day. And I was like, but did you check? And he's like, well, no, I just took the word of the staff for it. And I was like, you know, and I think some people, like you said it earlier, that we're creatives, or you guys are. You're all creatives, and it's like someone's bashing your life's work, and you know. But if they say I'm not coming back because you didn't do something the way I like it, then it's all right. Catch you later.
No, I watched one of Rick Stein's programs years ago, and I think he described it as like imagine like your 5-year-old kid's drawing you a picture, and you look at it and say that's rubbish and screw it up and throw it in the bin. And so in a way, some chefs or creatives, if you like, are a bit like that. It's like, well, you've put all your heart and soul into something, and okay, you don't like it, but please don't screw it up and throw it in the bin. You know,
it makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. I just think. You said earlier that a customer said something to you that they didn't like something, the way you'd paired two flavours.
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't think I'd say that. I just wouldn't have chosen it. And I'm not a connoisseur. Like, I trust you. When I go to a restaurant, I trust you, the chef, or the waiter and waitresses. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, I don't like the way you put the oregano on top of it.
I remember once, years ago, I made an onion ice cream, and I served it.
Was it fried onion, at least?
No, it wasn't fried onion. No. It was basically cream infused with onions and stuff like that, and basically like a nice ice cream. I don't even know if it was any good, if I'm really honest. I think I was trying something. Anyway, so I served it to a couple of guests, and as like a after main course before dessert type thing, like a little quenelle, and I think I put like some chives on it. I can't remember. And a lady said to me, it ruined her evening. I was like, it ruined her whole evening, and I just thought, did it really?
Yeah.
Did it actually ruin your whole evening? I was like,
I think like, I'm not being funny. Like, people need to get a grip. The scale of that, I would have ate that and just be like, oh, okay, eat onion. Or if it impressed me, I'd be like, hey, babe, eat that. It's really cool.
I think. Do you know what? But I think that's when, as my 9-year-old says, I was being a bit of I think they call it the word sweat, isn't it?
Yeah, you said sweat.
I was being
trying
a bit of a
too
sweat.
hard, yeah.
I was trying too hard to be different, to be creative, and I wanted. Whereas now, I think we're a much more sort of. I think we're much better at.
I suppose this is the because I always like at this point I'll always say something like, oh yeah, but it's all right for like Heston. But I suppose that's why people go there though, don't they?
Yeah.
Like, if there wasn't, I don't know, snail porridge on the menu, which is his signature thing.
But he's a genius, isn't he? He's literally created. I think of it as like artistic masterpiece.
It's a theme park of restaurants.
It's like he's created these iconic dishes now that are almost have like it's such iconic status, and he's just done so incredibly well. And what why would you go to a restaurant to and pay that money, if you like, when you could do it at home? You want to be wowed and amazed and stuff, and I think so important for us. I think sort of my sort of USP, if you like, is our sort of intriguing flavour combinations, because I like to think that people can't do this at home, and and that they come out and they go and they're really surprised, and we almost like taking them on a journey. Like we give them flavours that like a banana and caramelised black olive, which is so tasty. Sounds a bit weird, but it's so delicious. The other day we were trying a black olive fudge. And you think, and a lot of people might say, well, that sounds disgusting, but it's not. It's amazing, because black olives are salty, salted fudge, salted caramel, and it's really, really lovely.
So it's like we said earlier, isn't it? It's like everything's about the basic food groups: salty, sweet, savoury, so on
absolutely.
and so on. Umami. Like I think that's one of my favourite ones. I think it's so misunderstood. Umami. I always say it wrong. I always say unami. But I think it's such a misunderstood flavour combination. Like, the Chinese put MSG on everything, and it's fine, like, for them.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know, I just think... But I think that's probably why I'm never offended by ingredients, because I go back to my basic flavour profiles. And maybe because I develop recipes, it doesn't really bother me. But those things that you just mentioned would not offend me one bit.
No, but I think they're quite logical, kind of,
Yeah.
because of the flavour groups. And as you say, like, we use the flavour groups to sort of create the dishes, and we sort of do a check on the show. Is there enough saltiness in this dish?
Yeah.
Is there enough sweetness? Is there enough umami? Is there enough of that? Is there too much of that? So it's a great process to do that.
Is there an ingredient you hate working with?
Pomegranates?
Really?
Oh, jeez, honestly.
The little stony bit inside.
Yeah, I just find them annoying. I just don't see the point of. I mean, don't get me wrong. I will always eat.
If you meet my father-in-law, mate, he's going to break your knees, mate.
Oh yeah, of course. I just don't really. I don't get it. I know they're quite fashionable, or they are.
I think they're quite. It's that colour, isn't it? You find the ruby red inside. I think.
If I have a mouthful of pomegranates, I just don't like the textures.
You've not managed to make them work in a recipe either, really.
No, well, I've got a bad attitude about them, so I haven't bothered. But
the best one is one of my close friends. He used to work for he's worked for loads of good restaurants, and he said, "I said, what do you hate?" He goes, "Bananas." He goes, "They're phallic, they're horrible, they taste. They just I can't do anything with them." And I was like, "But yeah, pomegranate sounds like
Well, in our house, we're all allowed a veto of one food.
Okay.
So mine is pomegranates.
Okay.
For dinner.
Is there something you love working with then, if that's the case? Like, there must be a complete opposite.
Oh, everything.
Yeah.
I mean, no,
Okay.
I love working with
anything seasonal.
Everything. Yeah, I think we're very, very seasonal.
Yeah.
And all the dishes are driven around the seasons and what's available, the best times of year, or we preserve stuff from the summer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very, very seasonal.
Preserves is a big thing now, isn't it? Like,
it is, yeah. I mean, I don't really go in for too much of this, sort of fermentation, if you like, too much. But it's a real trend, isn't it, at the moment? It's huge at the moment. It's taken over from foraging, I think.
Oh, is it?
Foraging was like, I think every chef felt at one point that they had to call themselves a forager at one point.
Well, they've got to preserve what they foraged, I suppose.
Yeah, they have, yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it, how everything goes through sort of stages. Like, do you see yourself sort of moving a lot towards, like, the vegan movement at the moment? Or is it...
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, it's massive now. I mean, dietaries for us are massive, and we do more and more vegans now. We had a table of 4 the other night, and I have to say it's quite exciting to create a dish because, I don't think a chef's a chef if you just tell and say, well, like, I don't do pastry or I don't do fish. I think, no, if you're a chef, you do everything, right? You create flavours. It's your job to, if you're creative, you can be creative with everything. So we've got a really fantastic vegan menu. And every time we get a vegan on the thing, we go, oh, we kind of like, oh, God. But actually, I've learned to love it.
Yeah. Because
back in the day, if you were the very rare occasion that you would get, like in the 90s, you get a vegetarian in.
Carrot salad.
No. It wouldn't be as fancy as that. They would have an assiette legume. They'd have an omelette and then an assiette legume. Just a plate of old vegetables. That's all they'd get, and sorbets.
Yeah, I suppose, could you imagine, like, going... I'm just trying to think, going to Harvey's back in the day.
Oh, well, no, he would have just thrown you out, wouldn't he? On your ear.
Yeah. Was it him that threw someone out because they wanted egg on their steak?
I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember, but there's a story about it. But he'd throw someone out just for looking funny, let alone being vegan. Like,
yeah, I think at the time, he was quite a... Yeah, he was he was in quite a place, wasn't he? His head was in quite a place.
I don't know, it's interesting. Like, I do see people doing more the vegan, the vegetarian.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate the fact that at least it's done from fresh with love and, like you do everything else. It's not just an afterthought. So
I think that, but if you've got a table of 4 and one person... Well, the trouble now is that there is a dietary on literally every table.
Really? So
Pretty
gluten
much.
and so on and so on. And
Yeah, gluten's the big one, of course. Gluten, lactose-free, pescatarians, dairy-free, vegans. A lot of people won't have grapefruit because of the medication they're on.
Oh, yes, of course.
So there's lots and lots of that. So what I tend to do is I've got a menu. I've created a menu where I put on it whatever I like.
Yeah.
And then I've also got like 2 other menus that are variations and new dishes as well, which are... So I've got like a straight vegan menu and then one with a little bit more dairy in it. But basically I've tried to cover it off so people can have original creative dishes which are vegan.
Yeah.
You know, so because as I say, like we're creatives, you know, like we want to produce nice food, whether you are vegan or, you know, have you heard of the four-legged animal diet?
The what? Sorry.
Four-legged animal diet.
What's that?
But they're people that won't eat anything with four legs. Essentially, it's
So
no
just
red
eat-
meat, I think, is
About
what
to
they
say
say.
they just eat chicken.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
chicken and fish, I guess. That's-
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I'm generally low carb. Generally, because I make carbs all day, and if that's all I ate, I'd
Yeah.
be fatter than what I am, and I'm not exactly slim. But if I came to a restaurant, but this is the choice though. So this is just to clarify, you know, I don't want people feeling like theirs is a choice. But I don't think I'd come. If I felt, or at least I'd just be open and eat whatever. Like I'd have dessert here, which I don't eat
I
dessert
think
ever.
most
really.
people
Like,
are.
Yeah.
I think most people like that, but I think in this day and age, we actually actively ask, "Do you have any diet?"
You're trying to get ahead of it rather than be shocked by it.
So we used to say, "Do you have any dietaries or dislikes?"
Oh, okay.
And then we quickly stopped the dislikes
Yeah.
thing because people would say, "Oh, I can't have broad beans," right? And it would be like a garnish, like 3 broad beans on the plate or something, or 5 broad beans. And you think, well, they can just shove them to the side if they don't want them, can't they? You know, we don't need to start changing the menu.
I think the problem is then you give them the creative sort of power.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like the tail wagging the creative dog,
Yeah,
if you like,
yeah.
you know. And so I think that's why we've got these. Well, the worst thing is that you just turn up and say, "Oh, by the way, I'm a vegan that doesn't eat mushrooms," and then you go, "Oh my god, vegan that doesn't eat mushrooms." It's pretty bad. Yeah, that's tough, that one.
Yeah, I think I'm an easy customer, to be fair. Just give me meat and I'm all right. So you mentioned, like, earlier as well, and we're going to wrap it up now, but you mentioned, like, earlier, like, you've learnt a lot by your mistakes. What would you say sort of, like, are the key ones that you can think of?
I would say people management. I've been pretty rubbish at that. That's probably, I could have made my life a lot easier, or my life would have been a lot easier, I should say, if I'd have paid more attention to that type of thing, or probably paid a bit more attention on that side of things, But I've kind of, so I've kind of learned, and I think I'm much better at that side of things now.
Yeah.
But equally, I think at one point, like when I very first started out, I was a bit overly concerned about criticism of dishes,
Yeah.
and also I wouldn't be as confident in the food I was cooking necessarily. So it took me a while to sort of get on board with that. But so I think it's more things like that, really.
Yeah.
But it's it's hard to like. I've kind of followed a path of coming from sort of Rayleigh in Essex. I sort of left home with pretty much nothing, and then I've and no qualifications, no real skills, so to speak. And then suddenly I've put myself in positions where I didn't know how to do the job.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to be a head chef. I didn't know how to be a restaurateur, a business owner. I didn't know, and I've learned. So I've put myself in those positions, made loads of mistakes, learned, quickly moved on, and then gone up again. So I don't know how else I could have done it, though, to be honest.
Yeah. I think, that's a very good way of doing it in a way. I know as long as those mistakes didn't cost you dearly, but if they did, you move on.
Well, I don't
you,
know. Well, no, but it's just, it's just, I think if you don't just get on and do stuff, then you just don't ever achieve anything.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to sometimes put yourself out there, sort of make the mistakes, quickly pedal forward, and just sort of try not to think about them too much, but learn from them.
Yeah. And is there a chef that you've sort of been mates with or worked with or anything over the years that you sort of really look up to and think consistently they've always done a great job?
Golly, there's lots of them.
Oh, is
to be
there?
quite honest. Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a big admirer of Sat Baines. He's a mate of mine as well. But people like Simon Holston, I've got so much respect for him because he's very professional. He's always professional. He's very solid, if that makes sense. His food's always consistently brilliant as well. And he's always sort of quite a fair, reasonable guy.
Yeah,
He's got a good head on his shoulders. Don't get me wrong. If you go out for him for a night, it's a bit, but no, he's a great guy, and there are many chefs that I really admire, learn from. respect, and and I think now the industry with social media as well, we're all kind of in contact a little bit here and there, and it's not like the old days where chefs were at each other's throats quite so much. Well, they really were back then, but now chefs tend to get on. Everyone tends to get on quite well.
That's nice. Well, mate, I just want to say thanks for your time today. I've used up so much of your time, loads.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you so much for coming on. It's been great, and I just love how easygoing you are. I was really thinking, like I said to you at the beginning of this, that this guy's going to be really tightly knit, but no, like you said, you save that for the others.
I think I say too much. That's the trouble sometimes. I've been, sometimes I get myself in trouble for saying too much, but but I think it's important to be passionate. It's important to be honest, and to say how you feel about stuff. So.
You strike me as someone where right is right and wrong is wrong, regardless of who the other person is or the situation. Let's say.
Yeah, I think I'm quite principled in a way. I think I am. Yeah. But
I've taken that away from my time with you.
Yeah. So. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, mate.
Right.
Have a great day.
Take care. Bye.